You may have heard the story of the chemist studying the benzene molecule. While he slept, he dreamt of a snake swallowing its tail. When he woke, he realized the benzene molecule had to be a ring. This challenge was similar, but it took much, much longer, and you had to be a chemical engineer to do it and not a chemist. So, if I had to define the beginning of the journey through the Athena series, it would have to be here. Anticipating this to be the design for a large textile structure, I began an experimental prototype for the upper left quadrant. Quilters call this pattern tumbling blocks. I call it a three-dimensional 9-patch block. 6 months later, a mysterious woman shows up. I began at the top of the page, but she has to be angled. Over a year later, she arrives again, not seeming as hard-edged as she did before. The angle is critical to the design. As I draw it, I feel it to the degree, knowing that this is a study in complementary colors. Her eyes, hair, lips, breasts, and pubic bone will be in warm tones, mainly orange, and she will be constructed upon a foundation of cool colors based in blue. I love earrings, so I played with those quite a bit. "Who is this woman?" I asked. "Look at her naked. Arms aren't even important here. They take away from what she wants you to see. She's exposing her power, pure, raw, and completely linear." It was quite a while until I figured out who she was. Toward the end of Athena's design phase, the next piece hit, literally. As usual, I'm running late. I jump in the car and race down the hill toward the Rock Island Arsenal Bridge. The 5th Street stoplight turns red. I notice a bumper sticker on the old blue beater luxury car in front of me. Automatically, it is red. Starfleet Academy. I start laughing unusually hard. I used to religiously race home from the bus to the TV for the second half of the weekday Star Trek broadcast. Yes, I admit it, I'm a big Trekkie. The light turns, and soon I'm in the parking lot. I race in the door and relax a bit. I begin moving through my routine morning tasks. I'm 3 stories up in an old warehouse building. The wood floor has recently been sanded and varnished, left unstained. The new walls of the white, empty hall divide a large open space where the ceiling rafters are still exposed. An image flashes like a camera taking a picture in the dark. It engulfs the hallway but is also behind my eyes. It burns into my memory and every cell in my body and instantly disappears. The next project, I must officially be an artist now, I thought, telling myself to breathe. I had no idea how to draw a shark. A male great white shark is standing in front of me. He is in LeClaire Park in Davenport. He's pointing at the right side of his chest. He needs me to notice what's there. At this point, I'm adjusting to a life of design with 2 very unique textile projects that have taken over my new career as an artist. Inevitably, I was going to have to make something. I decided to start by making a prototype of the center square where Athena's face will be. For over 3 years, Athena was defined with graphite on paper. I can't describe the shockwave my system had to absorb when I began construction. Adding the hair was a completely new project. I was weaving. Strands had to go over and under one another. It took me a week just to get the hang of it. With Venus MV08 behind me, I could begin Carcharodon's construction. To make it reasonable, it would be pieced as a 9-patch square block, or with blocks of different size. Usually in a 9-patch, they're all the same size. I'm not good at drawing, but if something has to be drawn, I can struggle through it. I decide to use the Rock Island cityscape for the background. It makes more sense and has some interesting structures I can use. I go back to LeClaire Park one day to try to sketch some of the basic ones I would use in the piece. Later, I find a more interesting reference point at the Arsenal Bridge, a little amphitheater for watching eagles in the winter. I rotate the foundation 90 degrees to make it work. A couple months later, I went to Chicago on St. Patrick's Day weekend. As I was standing at the corner of Wacker and Market, Carcharodon hit me again. "This is the skyscrapers. The piece connects Davenport to Chicago. I can't use Rock Island. It has to be Chicago." I holler at the shark. The greening of the river was the diagonal of the piece from the upper right to the lower left. The shark switches sides and inverts. I had a lot of emergency design and construction to do with the show 6 weeks away, and I still had no idea how the shark would be constructed. All of a sudden, Things were much more tense than last year. It seemed for a long time that the shark had to be a stuffed animal. I worked on a 3D prototype, but next to the piece it wasn't part of it. I also experimented with a 2D prototype, but that was too boring. He didn't stand out enough. With a week left before the show, necessity once again proved to be the mother of invention. A solid 2D panel cut in the shape of the drawing holds the front half of a stuffed animal. 2 buttonholes in the quilt allow him to hang independently in front of it. Once he was completed, he had to have clothes. A second-hand kids' clothing store had to have something I could use. This was a far cry from being completed. The clock didn't have any hands, and the clock tower would eventually extend beyond the square, the extension folded behind for later. I botched the bottom right patch, rushing to get it done. I would have to completely reconstruct it later. I got by for the show by hiding an inch of length in the quilt. As we come through Beltane of 2009, the quilt top and the shark are exhibited to the public at Venus Envy Quad Cities. What a whirlwind 6 weeks. Look at the bags under my eyes. They're now permanent. After the show, I decide that the reconstruction will include a design alteration to emphasize the shark more effectively. Carcharodon quilts more simply and easily than Athena. It is the first completed piece of the series. Quilting Athena took another 2 years and more patience than I thought any artist or engineer should ever have to have. In the summer of '09, a polydactyl male tabby showed up demanding me in my apartment. I couldn't have completed this project without him. Thanks to lots of toes. With Carcharodon fully into construction, a third piece arrives. Athena surprised me as a stranger. Carcharodon terrified me as a predator. If the other 2 pieces came from somewhere outside, this one came from inside. With the morning's tea in my left hand, I sketched the path to the end of this journey with my right. This piece would allow me to move on and completely redefine myself. Dr. Desjarnett's 60 years of research and development is rooted in the mechanics of respiration. I'm not doing yoga anymore. I disagree with too much of it, and I've become too much of a clinician. I would like to thank Robert, Phil, and Morgan for their excellent direction and assistance, and also the Artifactory Board for considering and choosing this body of work. And thank you to all of you who showed up today, and for your time and attention, and for your support of the arts. That's it. Thank you very much. Questions?
Well, it's very interesting. Oh.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So you talked about what you see for yourself in the future. What do you see for yourself artistically in the future?
Well, that's a really good question, and one I'm still kind of in the process of trying to answer. I'd hope to do a little commission work for the public, making quilts that they want made. And I've started that process, hoping that that's, something I can be comfortable doing. I guess I've learned over these 20-some years, I'm really more of a designer than anything else. I use textiles to study the patterns and define the math, but I think I'm more of a pattern person with anything. One of the things I'd hoped to start doing more of was weaving and spinning, and in the years of 15 and 16, I had a friend in Davenport who was amazing with yarn, and I got interested in that, and I have this very strong drive for learning that, and I realized that one of the reasons for that was it once again connected into the math, spinning, the process of spinning, and the triangle that is made as you spin. Anyway, so spinning and weaving, I hope to do more of. You're always looking at the symbols of the myths as you do this kind of thing, I guess. When I got stuck with this journey and Athena showed up and demanded my 20 years. And I find it interesting in my life how there was one of the Greek stories is of Athena and Arachne, who was a spinner, And she was better than Athena, and she bragged about it. She didn't like it, so Athena turned her into a spider. But I just, and I don't know if this is the Athena curse that I just can't really get into spinning and weaving, or I keep trying, and I bought my spinning wheel and I did a little bit of it, but I do hope eventually to do some more spinning and weaving. That would be one goal. Oh, the other thing I did do when I moved here too, trying to come out of my isolation, is I'm going back to singing. So I did a lot of singing in my past, and I've joined the Voices of Experience at the senior center, which is a little choir, so I'm having fun doing that. For some reason, I have this kind of pipe dream thing of thinking of going back to school for voice and singing. I don't know why. I don't know what that's about, but we'll see if it goes anywhere. And I don't really know if I want to go. I never did. If I look back, you know, had I had enough security and confidence in myself, like you want every kid to have when they go to college, to be able to choose what they really want to do with their lives, I would have probably stayed in music. So getting an MFA in music of some kind is kind of a pipe dream if I survive long enough. But to be honest, I don't know if I want to pay for it or whatever, so I might just stick with doing fun stuff around town. Go ahead, Bill.
Can you talk a bit about that quilt right there?
Yeah.
How did the one in the center?
Yeah, the big one, the big square, biggest square.
How did that come about?
Good question. And that was actually after the book. Let's see, that piece hit me, I think it's up there, 2008 was when it hit the sketchbook, and that one took a long time. I started it as a rectangle. When I finally figured out it was a square, that was when it finally all started to make sense. So
Are they intended to be used?
The way I planned it when crisis management became what it was in those days, these were copyrights that I could teach from if I ever got to that point. And so that's what the three big ones are. The two here on the wall would be as well. The two fractal pieces never get done. The rest of them over here on this wall, or the side of the room, are the ones that when I was finally done with the math, I could start to try to recuperate and do some real, do what a real quilter does. try to make something. So these ones over here are the non math ones.
I find quilting very therapeutic.
Yeah.
And it's also very meditative.
Yeah, I think so. It's and I don't know about you ladies, but I think it's those of us in the guild. I think we're drawn to things. I think that's what it becomes for us. It's meditative and it's relaxing, yet it's being productive, and I think that's what we like about it. It's both. Anything else? Well, thank you again for your time in coming today.
Please.